indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, first item on our agenda is public comment. Just as a reminder, each speaker will have 3 minutes. And we'll start. Who's here? Anyone here for public comment? Mr. DeBona, come on up. We all know who you are, but if you could introduce yourself for everyone online and watching.
Hi, Jeff DeBona, Precinct 3 Town Meeting Member. So I just had something quick to say. Obviously, I chaired the No Committee with the election held over the weekend. We all saw the results were, and it's a learning experience about how people felt about the recent high school proposal. But we still have issues that need to be addressed, and I want to go on record saying I'm willing to help figure out with the rest of the select board what can be done to rectify the issues plaguing the building. Many residents have recommended the first step to be an audit of all the school buildings, utilization of a professional grant writer to work on getting MSBA funding, and assembling a new committee that includes residents with professional experience in these fields. Just contact me, let me know how I can be of assistance to you.
Thank you.
So, thank you. Let me sign this.
Thank you, Jeff. Is that you good?
Cool.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Anyone else here for public comment? Alex, come on up. You could also introduce yourself to everyone watching online.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Alex. I live in Pine Glen, and tonight I'm here to talk about Flock AI cameras. These cameras are an automated license plate reading system, which sit and scan and track every single vehicle that goes by, but with an AI backend that goes far beyond just reading license plates. These systems can harvest information on the details of every motor vehicle, driver, visible occupant, cyclist, and pedestrian who passes the cameras. According to the ACLU, this includes everything including make, model, color of car, as well as individual characteristics, such as bumper stickers or even which t-shirt a person is wearing. And all this information is collected and collated, which means that detailed profiles can be generated on a person, including their activities and schedule, every single time they pass by one of these cameras. And this data is all owned by a private company, which can in theory give or sell that information to anyone for any reason. They're often installed by police departments using local taxpayer dollars, but the information can be used by federal authorities as well, including those that are no longer known to be operating ethically, responsibly, and within legal bounds. These cameras have opened up a flurry of legal challenges, with several towns across the nation ending up in court to figure out issues such as how the Freedom of Information Act applies to such an invasive system when it's in public use. These cameras have already been installed by local police departments, including over in Billerica, which has 6 of these cameras operational, and Cambridge, which had invested in the cameras, but then pulled the project after concerns were raised by residents. To my relief and joy, according to the Public Records Division, when I inquired about Burlington, it turns out that we don't have any cameras yet. I'm here tonight to ask that we keep it that way. My request is that we be on the forefront of protecting the security and privacy of our residents and visitors by prohibiting the use of town funds for AI-powered surveillance equipment. Thank you.
Thank you. Reset. Anyone else in the room for public comment? Anyone online? Anyone online for public comment? Okay, I guess not. All right, moving on. You have an approval for the Recreation Department. Hello, Brendan.
Thank you. I realized last week that this was not in our request that comes over in May for the common and our special events throughout the year. So we have our annual turkey trot scheduled for this Saturday, the 22nd. We generally have in our request each year to close the right-hand lane coming inbound on Bedford Street between Lexington and Cambridge Street, so that the runners for the our turkey trot it's tight there. They can access past the cemetery, the automotive place cemetery, and then take a left down Lexington, and they stay on the sidewalk after that. Just looking to close that for a little while. We work with the police. They usually provide a bike detail who comes at the end of the race. We also have staff that follow up at the end of the race. Once they're through, we'll pull the cones off and open it back up. Our race starts at 9 a.m. They're usually past that area by 9:30. So just asking to close that small section for, I'm going to say up to an hour.
Okay. Mr. Nito, any comment on this before I open it to the board for any comments or questions?
Nothing to add. Nothing to add.
Nothing to add. Anyone have any comments or questions about turkey trotting?
I just had a few questions, Brendan. How many years has it been that you guys have been doing this turkey trot?
We started this in 2017 as part of the 50th anniversary. We have about 200 runners this year, which is
Oh, wow.
our highest.
Well,
And it's been the same route every time?
Yep.
Pretty much? And have there been any issues
No,
at any point?
nope.
Okay. All right, I'm fully in support of this.
all right, if there's no other questions or comments, I'll take a motion.
Quick comment. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
Every year,
Sorry.
he always tries to get one of us to run in it, but he didn't ask this year. He must be getting tired
Looking for more turkeys, Brendan?
after all these years of us saying no. No, that's it.
And I'll take a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the turkey trot on November 22nd.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained. The chair is also an aye. 5-0 for the turkeys. Thank you, Brendan.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Good
Brad.
luck with the event.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for coming in. Next, we have a public hearing. It's tax classification. So I will open the public hearing, and I'll need a motion.
So moved. Second.
Not for that.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion, we accept the advertisement as printed.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained. Chair is also aye. And that is 5-0. Mr. Denizio?
Sure, I'll start, and Patrick has some slides to go through, and we also have our Board of Assessors. Thank you for them being here, Mrs. O'Neill, Mr. Sheehan, Mr. Sheehan. We also have Jim Doherty, our longtime assessor, and now our consultant. Mr. Tierney couldn't be here tonight, so they're all here to answer any questions you may have. But before we get into it, just want to thank them for all the work they've done to get us to this point. This is sort of the last part of setting the FY26 budget. Way back in May, we set the expense side of the budget, and now we're taking the final step for how we're going to pay for all of that. So unlike Paul used to do and steal the entire presentation and pass it to me, I'm just going to pass it to Patrick right away.
Thank you.
Thank you, and a big thank you to the Board of Assessors for all the work that goes into this. Under Paul Tierney's leadership, Jim Doherty, and Maria and Caitlin, who helped with all the data collection and putting the information together that's before you. So, what's going to be before the board tonight? So, a brief overview of the tax classification process, why we're here, what we're doing here. The required tax classification votes, the 4 votes that the board takes in this process. A little bit about how values have changed over the last 10 years. And then the first vote will be a vote on the residential factor. And then the last 3 votes are votes on the discounts and exemptions that are required to be acted on. And then this year, we're going to wrap up with an overview of tax relief options based on things that we've heard in the last couple of months, particularly in the context of major projects. The board has before you in your drive a copy of this presentation updated, and you also have a motion sheet that'll help guide sort of the motions later on. So John just described this a little bit. So it's funny, we find ourselves this time of year often operating in 3 fiscal years at one time. So, we are in the current fiscal year deciding on the budget that's already been approved in the last fiscal year for this fiscal year, and we're planning for the next fiscal year. So oftentimes it's a point of reflection to understand everything that's going into the process for actually setting the tax rate. So in town meeting May 2025, town meeting approved the fiscal 2026 budget. In September and October, new growth and free cash were certified. We have to have this before we move forward with the classification process. It tells us how much was invested in new property or new value over the prior year. And then it brings us to here today to the tax classification hearing where the tax rate is set. And then the next 2 quarterly tax bills can be issued, giving exact amounts rather than the preliminary amounts that were issued for the first 2 quarters. This process is sometimes a little bit of a complex process when municipal finance in itself is complicated, but the tax classification process can sometimes be a little bit confusing. So backing up a little bit, property is classified into the following classes of property. We have residential property, and then we have commercial, industrial, and personal property. Residential property in Burlington is taxed at one rate, and commercial and industrial and personal property are taxed in another. This is known as a split rate. So the tax bills are developed based on the per $1,000 value rate, which allows us to really understand how much each class is bearing as part of the levy, or bearing of the levy, which is what is really being decided this evening. So the required classification votes, as I mentioned in the beginning, there's going to be a vote of the residential factor. This vote is really deciding how much of the levy the residential properties in town are going to be paying as part of the tax bills. And then the 3 votes, which the residential exemption, commercial exemption, and the open space discount. Votes are required as part of the tax classification process. The last 3 are pretty rare, and less than 5% of communities actually adopt them or use them. And those are communities with pretty specific circumstances and unique circumstances, which we'll get into a little bit later on tonight. So I think in the context of this process, it's interesting to look to see how values have changed over time. And you see in the last 10 years, residential values have been growing at a pretty strong pace. In FY24 and FY25, there was significant growth above the commercial sector when it comes to residential properties. And if you look 10 years ago, I think what this tells us is residential values 10 years ago accounted for 62% of taxable property. Fast forward to FY26, residential values account for 64% of taxable property, so a 2% increase in that levy share, or in that value share, rather. And 2% might not seem so significant, but in that same time, the value of all property in Burlington increased by $4.6 billion, or 84%. So I think that tells us a few things. I think that tells us that the residential growth, we are not immune to the value growth and the demand for housing that's been across Massachusetts and New England. So there's a good story there. And I think overall, in that last bullet tells us there's been significant value changes in Burlington based on the demand for commercial property, the really high demand for commercial property, and the increasing values across the residential class, which we'll see a little bit more of here in this slide, where there's a few stories being told here. And I think the important ones to highlight, you'll see that in the last 5 years, the average single-family home has increased about $220,000 in value. And oftentimes it's a difficult value to wrap our heads around because we're not realizing that. You're not realizing that perhaps maybe in your net worth of the average value, you don't realize that maybe until you sell your home. But I think that, the value really is important in telling the overall story of what the community, sort of the fabric of the community. And so we've seen that value increase over the last several years, really strong, and from FY20 and beyond, and we've seen it now to the average home value $820,300. And I think, you know, the bullet on this slide, the other part of the story that's being told here, for FY '25, the average single-family tax bill in Massachusetts statewide was $7,475, almost $1,000 more than Burlington had for an average tax bill last year. And when we look at our comparable communities, our tax bill of $6,733, how it compares to our comparable communities at $10,433. And I think that the story here isn't, hey, taxes are low, you know, no, there's nothing to worry about. I think that the story is we have a very vibrant and healthy commercial sector, and we have a community that has really prioritized the rate of growth in the levy. And so those two things are really important in the context of where our tax bills sit today. We expect they will still be below the average single-family home, or we know that they will be because they'll still be lower than last year's average. So our taxes will still be lower than the statewide average based on the factors before the board tonight. So I think that, you know, considering the sort of financial planning and the integrated and creative approach to budgeting that has been going on in Burlington for a long time, and recognition of what the commercial sector really does contribute to how the levy is divided, is really what brings us to the heart of that last bullet. So, the residential factor, as I mentioned, this is the percentage of the tax levy that is going to be paid by the residential class of properties. So when we look at the town, the overall value of the town, the total value of the town, almost 10.5 million, up from 10.5 billion, excuse me, up from just over 10 billion last year. So another year of significant value growth. And so how do we define what the tax rate is going to be? It really looks at that, the total value, and then the levy, the amount that's going to be assessed to the taxpayers. And so the estimated amount is 156 million for the levy. We say estimated because based on the rounding of the rate, it shifts it a little bit. It's still lower than was projected when the budget came out, and about 15 million of unused or excess levy capacity. So what does the factor look like when we start to shift, if you will? We start by looking at what a single tax rate would be, or a factor of 100. And so the shift at a 100 would be a residential tax rate of $14.90 and a commercial tax rate of $14.90. This would obviously be a significant change in tax policy in town, and would represent a significant increase to the average single-family tax bill. But we provide, the point of this slide is to provide sort of the sliding scale, if you will, to understand what the shift really does look like. And so we're allowed to shift all the way to a 175, which would be an average single-family tax bill increase of $216. Obviously, that means that more would be shifted to the commercial property payers and industrial tax property payers and personal property taxpayers than has been in the past. And we'll get into a little bit on the next slide about what those options look like. But this gives you an idea of the relative shifts and what the impact would be on the average single-family tax bill. Any questions before we go into the recommended options?
I do, Patrick.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
This always comes up for me every year. That last P, what's personal property again? Is that boats? What is that?
Personal property, it's sort of illfully, if that's a word, named. Personal property really tends to be what is actually inside businesses, so often fixtures, furnitures, equipment, things that are used in the production of businesses. So it could be, you know, could be a certain amount of office furniture. It could be equipment in a lab. It could be a number of things. So it's the actual property within these businesses. A big portion of it is power and supply, conduit, underground conduit. That's all taxed as personal property. So we personal property often is that one class that is really hard to predict. When we see building permits pulled for commercial properties, or we see building permits pulled for residential properties, we can tend to get a little bit of information of what's happening in the market. Oh, a big permit was pulled, and we're expecting this to be new growth and then taxable property in a year or two. But with personal property, it's really unknown to us that a company might be retooling their shop and adding new lab equipment, or adding, refurbishing equipment that they've had in the past. And it's also difficult because there's depreciation schedules of personal property as well. And oftentimes we have unexpected growth in the personal property class because power company or gas company might come in and might be extending or a new substation, or extending their conduits, or building something that's not, that is taxed and adds to the value of town. So it's a little bit of that unpredictable part, but it often comes in at a time where when we see larger personal property growth, we see that impact on the shift, so that residential taxpayers pay a little bit less than expected when we see those spikes in personal property.
Thank you. Follow-up, Jim?
No, I have a question. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I hope I'm not getting too far ahead, but you mentioned the motions. We'd have to have full motions, one to approve or adopt a residential factor. I don't see anywhere we're adopting a commercial CIP factor. It doesn't show in the motions.
So that's what the residential factor does. So the residential factor decides how much of the taxes will be borne by both residential and commercial taxpayers. That's that factor. So there's a minimum residential factor, which the Board of Assessors decides upon based on guidelines from the state. That's the most you can shift. But because the actual factor is how much, so if it's 58%, that means that residential taxpayers are only paying 58% of their levy share. Therefore, the rest of it must be borne by the commercial property taxpayers or the industrial property taxpayers.
Just a quick, the only reason I asked that is because in the last few years, we've always adopted both the residential tax class factor and a CIP class factor, and we voted on them in the past, so.
So what we really vote is the residential factor. And
Right.
that calculation does
So that's changed. We
what the
don't-
shift is for us.
So it is different than what we've done in the past, though.
I think the past we've used, we've read them from the book that,
Yes, yeah.
that the assessors supply, but the only vote you need is what the residential factor is.
Yeah.
for
So-
that
Just
calculation.
wanted to clear that up, because I know we've done that since at least 2017.
No, and you can still certainly do that, and my apologies for the sort of shift in process there, but that's really, the only vote that matters there is the residential
All
factor.
right, that answers my question. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else have any questions at this point?
I could just add that.
Sure.
We usually pick one of the options that are in the outline, and then we just vote that option, and then we say that.
When we pick the option, we usually read both, so we kind of all know.
Okay.
Thank you,
So,
Patrick.
perfect time to talk about what the options the Board of Assessors has supplied in both of the, this is on the screen and it's also in your materials in front of you. So we'll walk through the options. Option A, this is based on a 173 shift, which is the closest shift to last year's shift. So maintaining as close as possible based on the options to the same shift as last year would be option A, and it would represent an average single-family tax bill increase of $355. Option B is just slightly lower than last year, than the shift that was applied last year. So if you'd like to explore an option that would be less than the prior year in terms of what is being shifted to the CIP, that would be option B. One of the things that we often look at in this process is what is the most uniform levy share increase? So the finding that sort of uniform increase when it comes to the levy shares between the classes of property, that would be option C. And that would represent an increase of $405 to the average single-family tax bill. Another option that is always presented to the board is what would an option look like that would provide a CIP share that is lower than last year? So, lowering the amount that is being borne by the commercial taxpayers from a shift perspective. That would be option D, and that would be an average single-family tax bill of $412. And then the last two options are really sort of illustrative options for the board to look at to understand the context of the other options. And E would be the max shift, so a 175, which would be a $216 increase to the average single-family tax bill, and then the single rate, which would be, as discussed earlier in the presentation, a single rate for commercial taxpayers and residential taxpayers. And so I think that it's not necessarily recommended to go to the max shift because it sort of takes out some of the levers that the board may have in the future when shifting. It's a lot, to mitigate residential tax increases, it makes it a lot more challenging in the future when you're at that 175. There may be a time that we get there. Most communities that have the split rate are at that full shift, but I think that it's important to sort of take a measured approach to this, as the board has done in the last several years, measured insofar as mitigating taxpayer impact to both residential taxpayers and the commercial taxpayers by sort of getting there incrementally.
Mr. Chairman, if I may just add one thing. Option F is the answer to the question that folks, and we like to point out every year, is what do we get? What's the benefit of having all the, such a vibrant commercial sector that we have in town? Well, that points it out to you for the average single-family home, it's almost $5,500. So we always like to just kind of point that one out.
Okay, I'll open up anything.
I think you still.
You finished?
So I have more slides, but if the board wants to take this opportunity to vote on the residential factor now, or have a discussion on the residential factor before moving on to the exemptions and the discounts, or we can take them all at once, whatever you think.
Anyone have any preference?
We usually just vote on it all at once.
We'll do it all at once.
Great. So the discounts and the exemptions that we talked a little bit about at the beginning. So the residential exemption, this is actually almost a shift within a class. So what would happen here is that it reduces the taxable valuation of certain properties and shifts it to higher valued properties. This is typically used for communities that have a high rental market or not a high owner-occupied housing stock. So we see this in Boston, we see this in Cambridge, we see this in places like Tisbury or Nantucket that adopt these things to basically reduce the taxable valuations of the principal properties that shifts the residential tax burden from those lower value properties to the owner-occupied homes. And I listed some of the communities that, this is from the assessor's office, that currently provide this, but it's not recommended by the team for Burlington because of the high amount of owner-occupied homes that we have here, as well as sort of the regressive approach that this would be, because this would ultimately shift a lot of the burden to people in apartments and people in those types of housing situations. The next is the commercial exemption. So this is the exemption that provides a 10% property exemption for commercial properties with $1 million or less value and an average of 10 employees. Again, this is a rarely used exemption, mostly because it's going to create sort of a shift within an individual class. And we looked into how many properties actually may qualify for this, and there was only a handful of properties that had a valuation of $1 million or less that would even maybe have 10 employees working there, but it would be quite a stretch. So this would sort of create some challenges within the commercial tax-paying rate as we want to attract a diverse amount of businesses, small businesses, large businesses, this would ultimately shift to those large value businesses. I think 14 or 15 communities adopt this, and it's not recommended for Burlington. Then the open space discount, this is an easy one. We don't have any parcels in town, so a vote is required on this, but there would be no impact. And so finally, just to talk a little bit about some tax relief options. This was a question we got a lot as folks considered the impacts of projects and the impacts of tax increases. And so the exemptions here below are what are available to Burlington residents, and these are enabled under Mass General laws. So communities offer these benefits based on the statutory exemptions that are provided by the state. There are some changes that can be made in here, and there are some changes that Burlington has made related to the maximum income and the maximum assets here. So if you're widowed senior over the age of 70 and have a maximum assets of $40,000, you can potentially receive $350. These exemptions generally have a small population that are eligible to them based on the maximum income and based on the maximum assets. So as a community, if we decide we want to explore addressing some of these, whether it's the senior exemptions under Mass General Law 41C, if it's the veteran exemptions, or even the tax deferral, which might be more popular if we adjust the income limits for these. That would require a town meeting vote and then us to submit special legislation to make that change. I think that those are discussions worth having as a community, since that the income, particularly in the assets, have not really kept up with what income is generally in 2025. The last one relates to the senior work-off program. So the board made a programmatic change a couple of years ago, maybe last year, increasing the tax relief for that. But what wasn't increased was the maximum income for a single person or married couple. So we could make changes to that to increase the income limits for that at the select board level. That does not require an action by town meeting or special legislation. The most important part of this, which I failed to say at the beginning, is I think these programs have a lot of merit and they're important programs to consider, but the funding source also has to be considered too. So these, as you increase exemptions or opportunities for tax exemptions, it's important to understand where is the funding going to come from to offset that. Is it going to be shifted to the taxpayers? Is it going to come from another source? Those are things that are an important part of the question. So all of these changes are subject to funding and how we would fund those within the budget and fund those within sort of the mechanics of municipal finance. The other option would be adopting a senior means-tested exemption. So this has become, I don't know if popular is the right word, but a lot of communities have adopted something like this. So what it would be is creating a senior means-tested exemption. To do this, it would require town meeting approval, and it would be approval by the legislature. And what it would look like is some sort of match, 50 to 200% even, of a match to the state circuit breaker tax credit. So the state circuit breaker tax credit is an income tax relief that is provided to eligible senior citizens based on the categories you see below. And that was recently increased. It was always around $1,200, and then it increased a couple of years ago. So a lot of communities sort of had to understand how they were going to fund that increase if you're a community that consistently provided a 100% match. So the circuit breaker right now requires you to be age 65 or older. It would require to own property. The maximum income is higher for both single and married at 75 and 112. And the part that we'd have to wrestle with here, the part that would be interesting as far as eligibility, is that property tax and water and sewer expenses must exceed 10% of your income. So for the maximum for an individual, you know, there may be some benefits there, but there may be people who don't qualify based on that 10% because of where our tax bills are relative to the rest of the Commonwealth and the low water and sewer expenses compared to the rest of the Commonwealth. I'm adding that qualifier, both of those. So that's something that's worth studying a little bit to understand if we roll out this exemption, are people actually going to earn it and able to be qualifying for it? So it's something worth looking at, I think, based on what we've heard from the community. It would allow us to add additional qualifications. So that means the circuit breaker might have some sort of qualifications, but we may say you have to own a property in Burlington for more than 10 years. That's a common attribute that some of these communities have. And it would require property owners to submit their tax schedules to the assessor's office on an annual basis for that verification. So what we wanted to do was just provide context of those relief options, because it's something that we've heard a lot about in the last few months.
And Mr. Chairman, thank you. Just to add that, we won't stop looking into this. It isn't something you'll be voting on tonight, so you'll get an opportunity to add more feedback to that as we go along or participate in any of the meetings where we discuss any potential requirements.
Quick question, Patrick. Are the tax relief options listed on our town website for people to peruse if they want to take a look? Because
Yes,
anyone watching online,
Yes, thank you for the reminder,
they can take a look.
Mr. Chair. It's on, if you go to our website under the assessor's office, on the left navigation panel there, there's a, tells you all about, basically this document here, or this table here, provides all that right on the assessor's website.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Patrick, you said we increased the potential tax relief on the senior work-off program, but we, I don't want to say failed to increase the maximum income, but what we have in there looks like it's pretty low. It's not even, it's half of what the senior means tested exemptions allow. So I think we should at least put that on our agenda to look at down the road. Those are very, very small incomes for in order for them to apply for that potential tax relief.
I think the
Sure.
Thank you. I think the conversation when we had it briefly was about it's significantly higher than the other statutory ones. And the senior, I think when we did it, I don't even think the senior means tested was out then. So it's definitely something that's timely to look at right now.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think that while it also has a, if you were to increase the income limits, it would obviously increase the eligibility, which means that there'd be more applicants that would need to be funded in some sort of way, right? But I think that it goes without saying there'd be a benefit of having the additional, people providing work for the community. So there's definitely a value add, even if there would be more eligible.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Are we allowed to make it like a tiered level? If your income is this, we're allowed to give you this much of an exemption. If you have this income, the exemption can be that high.
I'm not totally sure. There are some communities have a very robust program where they have no income limits, right? And so they have 200-300 volunteers. There are some communities that have even adopted, proxy workers in making it a little bit more complicated. I think yes. I think mostly the programmatic changes can be made at the select board level. I think that, when you're thinking about what are the barriers to getting people the tax relief and what are the barriers to bring them in, I think that we should think about that as well, because then there becomes income verification at all certain levels that we should think about. But I think that you can make those. I'm not 100% sure, but there's a lot more leniency when it comes to the local level as far as the work-off programs.
I just wanted to, because I think the benefit should be more available to someone on a very low income as opposed to being the same amount for someone on a very high end of the income level. So I think a tiered approach might be the best.
Definitely something we should take a look at
Yeah.
future meeting. Joe?
Yeah, just a real quick question. Excuse me. Would apartments qualify, do apartments qualify for residential exemption? Do apartments, buildings qualify for that, or apartments themselves?
Generally, no, it's a property tax exemption, so they don't directly pay property tax. So they wouldn't be qualifying for property tax exemptions. But they may qualify for the work-off program because it's not necessarily, to think about that a little bit, because usually, they're paid almost as vendors or employees typically, and rather it's not, an abatement on the tax bill. It may be done that way here, I'm not sure, but generally, property ownership is required for these exemptions.
Okay, so just for myself, so the apartment complexes that we have around here, they pay one property tax for the whole piece of property? Is that what they do?
Correct.
Right?
Yep, at the residential rate.
It's not based on, is it based on how many residents live there, or is it based on the size of the property?
It's based on the value of the property.
Value of the property?
Yep. And because it's it's a little bit confusing sometimes because it's a commercial enterprise, but they pay the residential rate because it's a residential dwelling.
Okay.
Same with nursing homes or assisted living facilities where people are residents in their residential dwellings.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else have any questions or comments?
Sure, are we opening it up now?
We're opening it up. Let's open it up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the board for all their work on this, and to Patrick for this presentation. It was a really helpful summary. I know tonight we're focusing on the tax rate and that balance between commercial and residential, but I'm just looking at like where it says the average single-family tax bill increase, those dollar amounts, and I'm wondering if, I know that, the police station in Fox Hill hasn't hit yet, but it will down the line. Have we thought about or taken a look at how those dollar amounts will be affected in the upcoming years as those get rolled into our budget?
Yes, and I think that's really helpful or a really important context to hear. So, these tax increases are based on sort of the general budget development process, and there's no debt service associated with either of those two projects yet. So we probably expect the police station to be on next year's tax bill, so that's not factored in here, which, will probably be about $150 increase. And then Fox Hill might have a small amount next year, but really in the year after that. So we're trying to sort of time the issuance of whether or not, bond anticipation notes are the way to go for these projects, or borrowing right away, so that we can sort of segment the tax implications of it, because we recognize the idea that coming all on at once, might pose difficulties for folks. So, this is really an increase based on how the valuations in town have shifted a little bit into sort of really strong residential growth over the last several years, particularly the past couple of years. So, and I think that is also an important part about how we look at the shift too. I mean, if we were to go to a 175 shift this year, it would provide little flexibility if there's a desire to mitigate tax impacts of those two projects in future years. So that's why we sort of recommend where we are right now at the 173, so that, mitigating something like the police station might be a 173.5 or a 173.3. But yes, those are not within the FY26 tax bill. We expect the police station next year, and then after that, Fox Hill, but maybe a small amount for next year, Fox Hill.
Okay, thank you. And as you're speaking about the residential values and the shift that we're seeing, I did find that interesting that within the last several years, the residential values have gone from 62% of the town's overall value to 64, which in turn means that commercial went from 38 to 36. Is that a big concern? Is that an overall trend that we're seeing across the state? I know that we're constantly talking about keeping our commercial side as robust as possible and bringing in new businesses. So I'm just wondering if that's a slippery slope if we're sliding in the wrong direction.
No, I don't think it's necessarily the wrong direction, right? I think it's indicative of a few things, because that's part of, included in that is pretty significant value growth on the commercial side as well. So there, in this last year, we're capturing pretty significant commercial growth. I think it's what's happening to the real estate market, you know, in the state and in the region, and what the values are looking like. So I think it's a recognition of the value, you know, I say value not from a dollar perspective, but a value of the community based on what people are looking for in the communities, right? People are looking for places that provide robust services. And so what does that do? That drives up the competition, and that drives up the value. So when you look at the idea of being able to come into a community like Burlington and have lower than average taxes, have you know, no trash fees, have a recreation department that can, and having cultural opportunities, all of those things, you know, those drive up values. They don't necessarily drive up. We've been able to keep it in a way that they don't drive up taxes, but they've driven up values, which have sort of shifted a little bit in that growth. But a big part of it, I think, is just the real estate market in general. We have seen, I mean, nobody is a stranger to what values have happened in the last 5 years and years before that. So if we were seeing erosion of commercial values, I might say that's a slippery slope. If we were seeing, you know, a lack of sort of investment, I would say so. But I mean, FY26, we saw commercial growth even slightly higher than residential growth, you know, mostly attributable to one property. But I would say that it's not necessarily a slippery slope. I would say it's a sort of a right sizing of how taxable values have set.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful. And just looking at the options that have been provided, if I'm remembering from last year, there was sort of a recommendation from the board on one certain one. Is the recommendation option A? Keeping it consistent? Got it. Okay, thank you. That's the first I'm seeing that, so thank you. Okay, yeah, no, that's helpful. I thought so. So just to keep it sort of consistent with kind of what we did last year and allowing us to have those levers in our, you know, at our disposal as we move forward to work on that balance, and we're not, you know, at the peak amount that we can are able to shift it. So I agree with that recommendation. And again, just want to thank everyone who's involved in this. So thanks.
Thank you.
JD, do you have a follow-up?
Yeah, just on the values and the growth and the shift, how it all relates. In the second to last page of your historical data from the assessor's office in the book, in the middle you see CIP shift, and you can kind of see when commercial values are growing higher than residential values. You see that shift starting to slide down from the mid 2000s, where we get, you know, we're at 175 and we dip all the way down into the high 150s. And then when the inverse happens, when the values stop growing, when the commercial values stop growing higher than the residential values, which we've seen significant residential value growth in the last 10 years, you start to see that shift going the other way. So I just wanted to point that out for the values that we were talking about. And then the slippery slope, the slope becomes real slippery when if there's no growth in the commercial market, or even worse, decline. That's when the slope gets real slippery, because we no longer have any levers to pull when we're at the 175 shift, and then the bulk of that becomes absorbed by the residential.
Thank you, JD. Mr. Freeze.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I mean, obviously, thanks go out to everyone for all the hard work. Every year, I'll always thank you guys for everything that you do. Truly. You know, even with the numbers in front of us, if there's one thing the special election on Saturday showed us, is that despite how well we're trending commercially, residents are scared, right? People are not feeling fiscally safe, and they're not prepared to spend money in a big way as a community, right? And that's different than going out to eat on a Saturday night, right? It's different than spending $200 as a family to go grab pizza or something. And I think that we need to recognize that. And I really appreciate all of the, exemptions and, possible alternatives to try and help people. For the last 6 years I've sat behind this desk, I've often felt hamstrung by kind of the product of which we've become by having a strong commercial base and seeing property values increase year after year. And we continue to see that, right? There are houses in my neighborhood going up that are now $2.3 million for sale. They'll sit and they might drop a little bit, but they will sell. Somebody will buy them. Maybe it's, an older couple from Lexington looking to save on taxes. Maybe it's, a couple of executives with, little to no kids. Who knows? What we're not seeing are huge families buying these places, right? And what we're losing are starter homes. And I think that is not a thing that we can fix, at least not easily. We've waned and we've woed about it, for years now, about the problems that we can get ourselves into by trying to fix those kinds of things, or at least make it more, achievable for people to survive in Burlington. But I heard a lot, heading into the election, right? People who were heading into retirement or who were newly retired saying, I cannot afford this. You will price me out of this community. And fun fact, if someone has to leave Burlington, they're not moving next door to Billerica, because Billerica and surrounding communities have seen a massive growth, in the last 5-6 years as well. So where are they moving to, right? We're forcing people to move further and further away, from the community that they've given so much to and lived in for, most, if not their entire lives. I say all this because I feel like it's real easy just to look at the numbers and go, well, that one makes sense, right? That one's not going to hurt us as much this year, right? So for folks that are watching this, I think it's important to understand, if you haven't gotten it by now, we are doing this to rectify town meeting's decision on the operating budget that was presented to them in May, right? And that is how we get to all these calculations. It's how, along with the information from the assessor's office, everything is calculated out. So I guess like my big picture ask, because I'll support A, right? Like that's a no-brainer from a residential standpoint. But as a select board, in conjunction with anybody and everybody, including town meeting, right? Like, I think we need to be prepared to be more proactive in how we pay for things. Meaning, maybe it's time we do hire a grant writer, or look at bringing on grant writers, contract, right? And trying to identify dollars that are out there that we can take advantage of, right? Tightening our belt where we can, which is hard because 86% of our budget is people, right? And so it's like, oh great, we cut, a line for bubbler water, or we cut a line for extra reams of paper. It's not gonna do anything, right? So it feels tight there. But asking the finance committees, right? Be more critical of what's coming before us over the next 5-10 years. How can we space these things out? Are they must-haves, right? Like, what I'm seeing in front of me and what I'm hearing from residents and from, people in commercial spaces is that, yes, we're right-sizing, but things aren't gonna turn around and go back to what they were in the early 2000s, right? Like, we're not gonna see that. That time has gone, at least for the time being, and we need to be prepared to adjust the dollars to match, I don't want to cut services. Say it right now. I don't. But I don't want to be put in a position where we have to, because we've managed to put ourselves in an odd financial position, because the market shifts in a weird way. Now, I give a lot of credit to everyone in this room and everyone who works for everyone in this room, that so far we've been very lucky because of the talent to avoid, any missteps. But I think it's real easy to look at an option, pick an option, and so I feel the need to say these things in an effort to at least put the voice in the room and hope to have further conversations that lead us to better outcomes, that lead us to, maybe more unique outcomes, right? I think one thing that Burlington has been absolutely stellar in historically is being the first to a lot of great things, right? And it's because we have a lot of smart people in this town who think and then say those words out loud to other people, and then we have conversations that lead to smart decision-making, you know? And I don't want us to find ourselves where we sit back and go, everything is okay, and it will work itself out. What is it, right? It's the thing run by the people. So I want us to be cautious and just be thoughtful and continue to have the hard conversations. So I'm with Sarah and the board. I would support option A, knowing that at this moment in time, you know, residents could use, you know, I guess not us squeezing every dollar from them, you know, while we figure out what the next steps are. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Nick. Where are you guys going for pizza, by the way? $200?
Well, I got 4 kids, so. You got a pet base, and you're dropping a pretty dime.
All right, I got you, okay. Thank you. Nick stole a lot of my thunder with what we saw this Saturday, and if you weren't paying attention, you know darn well now that people out there are nervous. They're nervous about taxes, and they're nervous about inflation, and they're nervous about what's going on down in D.C., and they're nervous about retirement and their kids, and we got that message loud and clear. And I think as a board, we have to be more cognizant of what we're spending as a town. I want to call on each and every single town department to take a look at your budgets. We got to tighten up our belts. We've got to be very careful. We are in a kind of a tenuous position with our commercial vacancy rate. And we all have to do our part to make sure Burlington stays as great as it is, because that's what we all want. I also am very disappointed in how we've done as a town in our planning for large commercial projects. We've got to do a better job. I feel like these things are bunched too close together, and it's caused the detriment that we saw and the carnage we saw in the vote on Saturday. If we spread these things apart better, they're more palatable for people, they're more palatable for our budgets. We've got to plan better, spend smarter, think smarter. We have a great town. We have a lot of smart people working for our town. We've got so many resources here. We've got to call on that. Like, I love the engagement I saw from people about this election. We need people who never really thought of, like, town government to get involved, reach out to us. Experts in construction, experts in finance. Any creative way we can think outside the box to save a buck here, save a buck there. All that stuff adds up. So we have got to do better. I am all for option A. Everyone's stated the reasons why. Protect our residents, be mindful of what's going on in their lives. I mean, we're here for them. And if this wasn't, I mean, if you weren't paying attention, if this wasn't a wake-up call for you, then, I mean, I don't know what is. And I think everybody who cast a vote on Saturday wants a new high school. That's not the question. And everybody wants it. Everyone has been in that building. Everybody wants a new high school. The difference is, how do we get there? And that was the stark difference in opinion. And the majority told us what the majority's thinking. So we all want a new high school. That wasn't the question. And I hope no one took it that way. And I hope no one takes the result that way. Burlington values. I know this town. I went to that high school. I have spent my whole life here. Burlington values strong schools, good education. And that vote has nothing to do with if someone wants a new high school or not. Everybody wants it. We just got to make sure we do it right, smart, on the right budget, for the right price. And we have a huge challenge ahead of us. And I challenge everybody, we've got to go back to the drawing board, work together, work both sides, lose a lot of this tension and this angst that has come from that election. I think it was ugly. And I hope everyone can kind of put their guard down, work together. We all want the same thing. We all love this town. And we can do it. And I'm calling on everyone. We've all got to do our part. Lastly, I see Laura here, and that slide about the tax relief options, I would love to see if you start doing like blasts to the town or something on social media. Like if I was at work, I'd say, can we throw that in constant contact? Like something like that. I mean, that is something that would really raise some eyebrows, help people ask about all the time. I think that's the number one question we all got when all of this stuff with the high school was going on. What are the options for seniors? What are our tax release options? And a lot of people don't know where that is, but if we can make it a point to push that out, that'd be great. So, sorry, I'll get off my soapbox. This is a public hearing. Is there anyone here or public comment that wants to add anything? And I also want to thank all of you for your hard work. I didn't, but I thank you. Anyone here for public comment or anyone online? If not, I'll take a motion. Close it.
Chairman, make motion, we close the public hearing?
Second.
Motion is made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, chair is also an aye. Public hearing is closed. One more call for questions or concerns before we take a vote and motion. All right, I'll take a motion. Motion 1.
Yep, I'll make a motion to adopt a residential factor of 58.3195% as presented in option A for fiscal year 2026.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, chair is also an aye. That's 5-0. Take another motion.
Make a motion to not adopt a residential exemption for fiscal year 2026.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, chair is an aye. That's 5-0.
Make a motion to not adopt a commercial exemption for fiscal year 2026.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, chair is also an aye. That's 5-0.
And I make a motion to not adopt the open space discount for fiscal year 2026.
Before I second that, quick question.
Yes, sir.
I meant to ask this while you're presenting. Does the landlocked parcel not count as that? Is that not defined as open space?
Oh, what?
The landlocked parcel?
Well, it's town-
Landlocked forest.
it's town-
That was because it's town owned.
Tom,
Yeah, it's not classified as open.
Right. Oh, gosh, I am not thinking tonight. Okay, never mind. Second.
Motion is made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, chair is also an aye. That's 5-0. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Patrick, for presenting. And again, thank you to our assessors and the Board of Assessors. And thank you to Paul. I think Paul is online also for all his hard work. Thank you to the pizza that Nick had. Moving right along, we have an appointment for the Scholarship Committee.
shared drive. Stand by. Yeah, grab it. Mr. Chairman, I think it was, the list was shared with the board on, Linda's going to go get it just in case we don't have it. But this was a call to action for the Scholarship Committee that we didn't have, we only had one member of. There was quite a few people that responded. I think maybe over 30 people responded. There was a couple of public sessions that the folks could go and hear more about it from Kendra, and Lynn was at a few of them. And there were people that expressed their interest, and what we were going to do with our first pass was appoint the folks. There were 5 people that said they could do 2 years or be on for multiple years. So what we wanted to do was appoint those 5 folks, have them come meet with Kendra, have that group decide if they need more, and we have a list of willing participants who we're also trying to convince or find out what else they're willing to help with. But that was what we had in front of us tonight. If you don't have the list, I can pass it over.
I saw the list, yeah, we have the list.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do want to thank everyone who did throw their name into the ring for that. We did have like around 30 people respond, so that's great. Keep those cards and letters coming, because we need help on all types of committees. So does anyone have any questions or issues with anyone on that list? Nick?
No issues, just one question. I know, JD, you said you're going to put them on for 2 years or multiple years, but like, do we think it would be wise, or it would behoove us to like stagger each of them, right? Because that's what we ran into the last couple of times. We appointed them all for like a 2 or 3 year term. They were like, we're done, thanks so much, bye-bye. And we're like, oh, no. So like, how are we handling that?
So there will be 2 appointed for 3 years, 2 will be appointed for 2 years, and 1 is being appointed for 1 year. And then we will revisit it with Kendra, deciding if she's going to continue on or if she's stepping down next year when her term expires, and we'll go from there.
Perfect. Love it.
If we get to the point where we're adding some more folk, after they get together and decide, oh, wait a minute, we want some more bodies, then we can identify who's in every one of those slots.
And Kendra's good with staying on. I know there was a question.
she's good until her term expires in '26.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Any other questions or?
Sorry, just to follow up to that. Her term expires June 26, end of 26, how does that work?
It's June 30th.
June 30, 26. Okay, so she's
gonna
at
work
least
with-
good till
with
June.
these guys to get everyone, she's got a whole book, she's gonna pass the torch if necessary, she may stay on.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments? I'll take a motion.
I make a motion, we approve the 5 names that were presented to us to appoint to the scholarship committee.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, chair is also an aye. That's 5-0. Thank you, everyone. Next, we're going to approve some meeting dates for next year.
Mr. Chairman, we did our best to, this year we had a couple of hiccups where we had meetings scheduled for right before the warrants were due. So particularly in August and December, when we have the warrants due for January and September, we only have one meeting in August and one in December. So we think this covers us, that we don't have meetings on any holidays, and that we are meeting after the warrant will be due, so that we won't have to ask you to change your meeting date like we are for our next meeting.
Okay, any questions or issues with the meeting dates?
I was trying to look at that. I couldn't find the town meeting dates for next year on the website anywhere. Are those available?
Yep.
Okay, so
Yeah, so there
those are no at this point.
They are.
Okay.
Yep.
They are,
Send you the link.
I was gonna say, January 26th. May, I don't believe it falls on either one of those, and then, September 28th.
Okay.
So it's 2 of the dates here. It's more our warrant that we run into an issue.
Right, yeah.
And when we're meeting regularly during the, from January to the summer, we don't have to worry
Right.
about it, because we're going to have a meeting in a couple weeks if we miss it. But just in August, we only have one meeting, in December, we only have one meeting.
All right, no other questions. I'll take a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the 2026 meeting dates as presented to us.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, chair is also an aye. That's 4-0. Next item on the agenda is approving the minutes. Regular session, October 6th, October 20th, November 3rd, and strategic planning, October 15th. Anyone have any issues on, everyone get to read and review the minutes? Any issues? Take a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the minutes from our regular sessions on October 6th, 20th, and November 3rd, and strategic planning session of October 15th, all of 2025.
Second.
Okay, motions are made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained? Chair's also an aye. I heard 4-0.
I'm here 5-0. It's the
5-0.
minutes.
Minutes. Subcommittee. Let's go first. Joe.
I'll go first. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you all know, I'm going to bring up the hunting. Everything's going great. There are no issues over there. There's been a few deer harvested, which is great for us. I'm going to get on a little bit of a soapbox right now. Nick and Mike had already put on it, but I'm going to go a little bit different angle. I thought it was absolutely horrifying, disgusting to see what I saw on Facebook, talking about people and the way they voted. Sometimes in this town, we have to realize that we're all here for the same thing. We're all trying to get the best for this town. What I saw and what I heard, and being outside in the public as much as we all are, the stuff that I heard about other people and the way they voted and how they voted, I didn't really care how they voted. It's up to them, not to put my hand in their pocket. But the things that I heard from some people in this town, all over that Facebook page, was absolutely horrifying and disgusting. I'm horrified to say that I even read some of it. It's my soapbox to be on that right now, and I'm telling you right now, we have to come up to be a better town than what we were for all that went on. The things that some people said about other people was just absolutely asinine and ridiculous. So that's all I have to say about it, and I hope everyone realizes that stuff like that really bothers me.
Here, here.
There you go. Thank you.
Sarah?
Sure, I don't have much, but on the Facebook train, apart from some of the more unofficial residents page action, we now have an official Town of Burlington Facebook page, which was, so thank you so much, Laura, for your work on that and
It's
getting that
awesome.
up and running. It's been a lot of engagement and activity on there, very positive place to see, and glad to see that up and running, and, you know, in your short time here, already making, you know, visible steps to improve our communication as a town. So I just wanted to say thank you, and if you haven't followed them, I think we're up to at least 500 followers now?
I think over 700.
Over 7.
Hey, now.
700, wow. So yeah, check that out. The communication has been great, with some really helpful information already being shared on there. So just encourage everyone to follow the official Town of Burlington Facebook page. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah.
No subcommittee, so to speak, but with Laura here, I know you're off to a fast start. Your head's probably still spinning from all the stuff going on, but I could just think of, it's such a fertile area of how much stuff we can share with the residents now. The tax, even with the tax write-off that we talked about, there's so much, now that we have someone who can spread the word on these and get the word out, I think that it's awesome that we have. it.
Amen.
So, just wanted to-
Thank you, Jim.
Good.
Mr. Priest.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, gosh, if each residence page has like 4,000 to 5,000 people on it, then that page should have 4,000 to 5,000 people following it. There's no reason why those people shouldn't be following that page if they want information right from the source. I'll start with just two things. First, Veterans Day last week was so wonderfully attended. I went with my wife and my kids. I actually had the day off, which was nice. We went. It was so cold. It was like colder than I even like. I was like standing there in a suit, freezing to death. People stuck it out. Everyone did such a great job. Kudos to the chorus, the band. The bagpiper tried their damnedest to play Amazing Grace, and the temperature was just not having it. Huge thank you to Chris Hannafin and Jen Goldsmith for yet again putting out, a Veterans Day ceremony that truly does take the time to recognize and understand, people who serve and veterans, right? I think this is at least the second year now where he's had someone from each branch, or at least the three primary branches, right? So Marines, Navy, and Army, get up and speak and talk about, the history of each of those branches and, the importance behind them. But just wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. I too actually had a small statement. I have a much larger statement about the ballot measure as a whole, but I didn't think subcommittee was the right place for it. But given all the conversation around social media and the vote, I actually do want to speak to it as well. I simply want to start by saying ballot measures don't have winning and losing sides, right? It's simply whether or not it failed or it passed. And I think this goes to what everyone's saying, is that everyone took this vote so personally, it became about winning and losing something. And that's not what this was, right? Everything that led up to that election, the election itself, the consequences of the election, everything we do as a community. And we are only as strong as, how we choose to show up and stand together. In moments like this, I think it's important to remember that how we speak to each other matters just as much as what we're speaking about. Of course, disagreement is healthy, but like Joe said, disrespect is not. The frustrations surrounding this vote cannot become fuel for attacking neighbors, questioning motives, or assuming the worst about people who simply saw the issue differently. And I want to say this as clearly as I possibly can. Social media is not a substitute for civic engagement. It never will be. Social media is not a replacement for community. I'll go so far as to say. It clearly rewards outrage, oversimplifies complex issues, and too often turns neighbors into opponents. We are so much better than that. Period. We need to bring our conversations back to rooms where we can look each other in the eye, hear each other fully, and remember that we're all on the same team, even when we don't agree on every step forward. It's really that simple. We need to be coming together as a community now more than ever. And so my ask going forward is that people hear this, understand that as the executive board, as some of the leaders of this community, we're asking everyone to take a step back, take a breath, be reflective, and let's move forward together, because beating up on each other, it's not serving us anything. So that's all. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Nick. Just want to reiterate what we saw from the Wellington Police Department's Facebook page, that the move is completed, and they're all over there in 174 Middlesex? 171 Middlesex? I won't mail them any letters. And everything's moved except 911, right? Am I correct?
911 today.
911 today, so they're completely out.
Yep, there's still some people over there. There's some detectives that are working from there until Thursday, and then dispatch, I'm not sure they've totally moved over, but 911 switch was.
And the next steps will be a fence over the old police station and then demolition at the end of this month?
Hopefully, we have a kickoff meeting December 4th with the contract.
Okay. So, yeah, so everything's the same. It's business as normal. It's a pretty seamless transition. Our police are doing their jobs with no different. 911 works just the same. Everything's the same. 781-272-1212 for non-emergency. All the same. Nothing's changed. Just want to alert everyone that if you need to go in person, they are now at 171 Middlesex Turnpike. Second, a couple of my fellow board members stole my thunder. Thank you to Laura for all of her efforts on our brand-new official Town of Burlington official website. Everyone, please, Facebook page, please follow it. And this is the very tip of the iceberg of all the great things she's going to do. So thank you for all your efforts. I know it's probably a lot to meet everybody, all the new faces, all of the new policies and everything we do. So just take it one bite at a time. We appreciate your efforts, and so far, so good. And lastly, I sent them all an email, but I want to publicly thank each and every member of the Burlington High School Building Committee for all of their efforts over the past 2 years. I know they put a lot of work into the plan that was presented. I know that they're probably very discouraged and unhappy, but I hope that they don't think their time was wasted. They did a great service to our community, trying to improve the lives of our students and teachers and improve our school districts. And this is only the tip of the iceberg we've learned. We're going to keep going, but I did want to thank them for the time that they did put in on the last 2 years. So that did not go unnoticed. Town Administrator's report?
Just a couple quick ones. I think most of them have been covered. If anybody's driven by the Common, you've seen that the work has begun on the Town Common sign. So hopefully more to come to that at the next meeting. They've already, you'll be able to see that they've already started. The social media that we're talking about with Laura Hare, that's just the first step. Keep an eye out for what's coming next. A lot of good things, more different platforms and some new ads, including some newsletters and things like that. You may even see Patrick and I in a TikTok, who knows?
Oh,
Careful, gents.
Mr. Janino.
Going to be moving the meeting. It was, everybody had responded that they were okay with moving the meeting from the 8th to the 15th.
December, yeah.
So we'll get that publicized and get that out there. And then finally, we won't talk to anybody before, so happy Thanksgiving to everybody and all those thousands of people watching.
Great. All right. Take a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstain. 5-0. We're adjourned.